There's one thing I try to tell people. It's just slow down. They don't know you're there, or they shouldn't, So I know that your heart's racing. I know that your adrenaline's pumping, and I know that it feels like this deer knows that I'm going to, about to stick an arrow into him, but they don't, or they shouldn't at least, right? So it's like, if you slow it down, that deer really doesn't have a reason to bolt out of there. And there are times, if the wind shifts or something, you get a sense like, okay, I got to speed up a little bit, but 90% of the time, slow down.
Welcome to the Habitat Podcast, the podcast for wildlife habitat management, hunting strategy, and land stewardship. And now, your host, Jared Van Hees.
Welcome to the Habitat Podcast.
Mr. Albert Tomechko, how you been, buddy?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Doing good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're loud and clear. The reason I ask is I'm heading down the road going to northern Michigan bow camp this weekend. So head north.
Wow. That's 2 deer camps and 2 weekends.
Yeah, living the dream, bud. Living the dream.
That is.
Gotta work a lot in between, but you know the deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it never really stops, does it?
No, I'll probably be pulling in. I got 3 stops I'm going to make today for some customers. I'll probably be pulling in either in time to sit the evening or in time to hang a stand for the morning, one of the two.
Very cool, man. Well, good luck, man. I looked like you guys had an awesome time in West Virginia. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a podcast already out by the time this goes live. So if you haven't gone back and listened to it yet, check it out. We pretty much walked through the weekend on that episode. But yeah, it was great. Had a lot of good dudes in camp from our Patreon group, Habitat Podcast Patreon. We're down there at Scott Limer's farm in West Virginia. Beautiful farm. Yeah, just beautiful country. I mean, it's a lot like your farm in terms of the topography.
Yeah.
A lot of his fields were in the bottoms versus up top. He had some up top too, but so it was cool. He's gonna have the whole thing logged, and it should be a really, really good farm here in probably 3 to 5 years. So
wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really different. I tell people all the time, I love looking at real estate. And I was actually talking with our friend Vince about that. I was like, I'm always looking at real estate, and I'll look at a farm and it's like in flat country, or whatever. And I'm like, well, how would I access this? I always go to access it. Or if I'm looking at a farm in more of either the foothills of Appalachia or even in a different area, because I look at land all over, where it's really steep terrain. And like, okay, well, how would I access this piece? Or how would I write a habitat plan? And just real quick, I don't spend like hours writing a plan. Just like real quick, like, oh, okay, there's a field on top here. Okay, I can see this road access here or whatnot, And man, it really makes you realize just how different the challenges are for each scenario. In flat ground, you're like, well, man, it'd be a nice area to have a food plot back there by the cover, but I got to walk through all 50 acres of this farm to get to that particular spot. How am I going to do that without deer seeing me? There's, it's flat. The deer's laying there, it can see, so it's just interesting to see the differences in terrain and how hunters and the deer act differently in those areas.
Oh, I would totally agree. And good thing you know a guy. So if you ever need any help with that, you just let me know. But I know you're a man with a plan too. I think that's what's so cool about the land plan side of the HP business is that, when you go to all these places and see all these different terrain features and farms and this and that, yeah, things are different for sure when from flat Michigan to West Virginia, Appalachia. But a lot of the principles are the same. And when you're going to a lot of these spots, where to execute these principles, like bedding. Where you think bedding would be in the hills, we literally found that 4 times over the weekend, like exactly where you think it would be. Going to hunt up there, hang a latitude saddle, boom, you're in the bedding area. It's pretty standard procedure once you've seen enough places. So I do think I'm blessed when I get to travel around and see these spots to be able to just reaffirm things that you think and help guys out with their plans. So. Yeah, you love it down there. Too bad you couldn't make it, but maybe next time, and you would know exactly.
Oh gosh, I was so jealous, dude. I was so jealous. We have just such a crazy a crazy month of October for our family, and I'll spare all the details, but just really, really insane busy from basically the last week of September almost till Halloween. We're just covered up and stuff. And that's pretty abnormal for us. I mean, we're always, fall's always busy for everybody, I think, but not as busy as it has been this year. So I just was no way I was going to make it. But boy, I was jealous, just because honestly, I didn't have to even shoot an animal, but just the camaraderie of everybody and just the pictures and the blood trailing. You guys were, trailing some deer together on the stories. And I just was like, I could just feel my adrenaline picking up a little bit just watching them. I'm like, man, that's awesome. So yeah, congrats to the guys who did harvest, and awesome to see so many guys get together. And several I have not talked to or met, I think, but several I have, and just look like a great group of guys. So really excited to listen to that podcast too.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Well, I know you said you've been having a busy fall and you got a busy fall ahead of you, but you've already relieved some of the stress, I would say, or maybe got the monkey off the back, right? Congrats on that beautiful deer, buddy.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I was blessed, man. He's a real nice deer. Certainly I'll confirm I'm going to send the teeth in. I should have it either today or tomorrow. To mail the teeth in. I already got the teeth sitting out on the seat of the tractor. I'm going to mail them in for cement manuali aging at my buddies over there at Deer Age. They're getting to know me, I think. But yeah, I'm going to be sending those over there and confirm. But based on all summer long pictures of him, he looked fully mature, big old sagging belly and sway in the back. And I would say he's at least 4.5, if not 5.5. So, nothing crazy big, but just a really nice, mature, big beamed mainframe 8 with a 2 to 3 solid 1-inch kickers coming off bases and off the back of them.
Well, yeah, I don't know when I wouldn't shoot that deer. I mean, he's beautiful. So those big old fat ones are the ones I like. And I want to hear more about the setup. I wanted to get you on here today and talk about setup, the whole plan, and give folks an idea of kind of how this came together for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been really fortunate to kill a couple deer early in the season. And I think, it's really cool because I have had people contact me and like, how do you do it? Or, whatever. And honestly, a lot of it's luck. I mean, you got to get lucky. But I'll say like, with these deer or, with the deer I killed last year and I had really good encounters the first day of the season. I killed dozer the second day of the season. I killed that wide 8-point a couple of years ago, the first day of the season. I killed this buck the first day of the season. And number one, I mean, you have to have the deer there to hunt. So like, I always like to emphasize things in that way because I don't think you can't kill a deer that's not there. So like a lot of guys will say like, oh, don't put pressure on your property. And I couldn't agree more with that. Because if there's not a deer there that you're super excited about, I would not go into a property hunt just to hunt. I mean, if I want to go watch birds, I'll go to a park somewhere that I can walk around and look up at birds, but like I'm not interested unless I really want to shoot a doe or there's a particular buck of going into a property to hunt, So I do agree with that. But I think the caveat has been for me is that if I have a deer on camera, significantly or at high odds showing up in daylight, that I'll try to pick right, and that's really what I do. I kind of live and die by trail cameras, so that's been a big point of success for me. Obviously, you got to play the wind, your access has to be good, those type of things. And this year, I knew coming into the fall that my fall was going to be really insane. I had to travel, my wife had to travel, and we had some other things moving around personally that just made some things a little bit more difficult. And then, of course, we had some things pop up personally that had put a little fear into us, and made us, made me in particular kind of want to stick around closer to home here. And wasn't sure how much time I would be getting at the farm. And then on top of all that, we had a really bad EHD outbreak in southeastern Ohio. And that was something that I wasn't sure how that would impact our farm in particular, but it was spreading. And I mean, we still haven't got a frost yet, so it could continue to spread up until that point. Good news is, knock on wood, it does seem like some of the deer that we had been looking for have shown up, and they're certainly nice bucks. But the old saying, one in the hand is better than two in the bush, right? So, with a young child at home who's turning one, and then a 4-year-old, when I had an opportunity to get in the stand and hunt a deer, and this was a deer, I will say, Jared, I really said to myself, it's going to be a decision at that time if I see him. I wasn't dead set on shooting this deer. But that's kind of, up to, I'll stop up to that point. That's kind of, how we got to this particular point. I did put in a carbon load food plot. This is a permission piece. It's a small piece of property. I also tend to try to prioritize my hunting based on like the area. So like I know the farm, we're very blessed. We have about 400 acres now that we control. 300 is owned and a little bit is leased. And it's like, on that particular, property, other than a trespass or something that we might not be able to control that. Obviously, we do our best, and knock on wood hasn't been a major issue. But what we focus on is, I know those deer, for the most part, they're not going anywhere. They're there. Whereas like some of my smaller permission spots, they can get hit pretty hard, early. Guys are they're out there, they're in their stands, and they're pushing deer around, trying to get one killed early. And I kind of have known that, especially when you get into October. So on some of these spots, if I have a deer that's showing up regularly, or at least what I consider regularly for a wild animal, sometimes I'll say, you know what, I'm going to put my eggs in that basket for the first, 2 or 3 sits of my season, the first, week, let's say, barring no major weather pattern changes or whatnot, and or activity on the property. And then if that doesn't occur, or if I'm unable to harvest that particular deer, then I might switch my targets, right? So that's just kind of my approach. Last year I put my targets right at the farm. Things worked out. My cousin and I were able to get some time off. We both went and were able to get some time away from the families, and we both went and hunted. Zach shot a doe opening morning, and then there was 2 to 4 different bucks based on wind direction that we felt were killable that first week. And Zach saw one, I think, the first evening. I saw one the first evening. We both had them within 100 yards, but just didn't have a shot opportunity. And the second evening, of course, I was very, blessed and lucky to kill Dozer, which was a real nice deer off the farm that was 7.5 years old. And, again, we just based that on trail camera data and kind of what we were seeing, and then, the quality of the bucks that we wanted to target. And that's kind of my take when it comes to hunting private land in early season.
Great. Well, yeah, you've been an early season killer for how many years in a row now?
A couple at least. Yeah, man. I've been really lucky for sure.
Well, lucky and good, right? So you're taking advantage of the more patternable situations, which is the first week of the season. I saw that on my 40 already this year. I wasn't able to hunt till last night out there, but I mean, early season, 3, 4, 5, 6 days of season, I had a lot of good bucks on their feet. So, that's nothing new to anybody who pays attention, but that's something I don't always strike during. So good for you for doing that. Now, this buck you killed this year, let's hear about the hunt and, the wind direction, all that stuff, and tell us, throw it out there. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So I, as had a kind of a busy, Ohio opens on Saturday. So that deer and another buck had been relatively frequently on camera. And then that deer was actually the one I ended up killing was one I was texting with a buddy of mine, and we run a bunch of cameras all over the place, and I said, man, that deer's so mature. I'm like, his rack is, it's very nice. But it's not like, one of these giant, whitetails, but I'm like, he's a fully mature, big mainframe 8-point and is, in velvet, he really looked amazing. And I just remember being like, gosh, that deer would be hard to pass just based on body size, big old belly and everything.
Are you thinking about saddle hunting, but haven't taken the plunge yet? Well, I can assure you, LatitudeOutdoors.com is right where I would start if I were you. I got my brand new Method 3 2-panel saddle this year, the most comfy saddle on the market, ready to go this fall. Also, guys, I've been rocking the Method 2 for years. Method 3 came out. It couldn't get any better? Well, it did. This thing is insane. Check it out, LatitudeOutdoors.com. But don't forget the Profile Saddle platform and their brand new Ranger 33 packs. I run the Ranger 22 right now, and I'm definitely looking at the Ranger 33 to add to my arsenal for this fall. Check them out, guys. Great people, a great company, Michigan-based, and they're already whacking bucks this season. LatitudeOutdoors.com. Do you have some awesome shed antlers laying around that you don't know what to do with? Maybe sitting on your desk or bookshelf? Put them on the wall with the Antler Anchor Company. My good buddy Ryan started this company. They make stainless steel shed antler mounts, European mounts, something you can be proud of putting on the wall. Think of a boat anchor with antlers coming out of the top of it, Antler Anchor. I'm a boater. I love this idea. It's one of the coolest logos I've ever seen. And your sheds and European mounts look great on the wall with them. Check them out at antleranchorco.com. Tell them the Habitat Podcast sent you. Great piece of machined stainless ready to put on your wall to hang those trophies.
Well, as usual, I mark on the family calendar, hey, I'm deer hunting, and if you don't have kids, if you plan to, get ready for the family calendar. Jared can probably attest to that. But
the family calendar, buddy. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Live and die by the family calendar. That pretty much turns into gospel. But we did some running around as a family. We went to this little carnival or something it was, and I was kind of getting anxious, and texting a couple of buddies. I'm like, what time are you guys getting in the stand? And I don't know, it was like 1 PM. I had plenty of time, but I ended up getting back to the house and with the kids, and the kids went down for a nap, and I just couldn't, take a no scent shower. I had all my clothes washed. I always, no scent wash my clothes and then put them in totes, and then I ozone them, and then I spray them down, and then this particular area I was hunting had a lot of apple trees around it. And I had grabbed a couple older apples we had that had gone bad. I put them in the truck. And when I got out and put my boots on, I stepped on the apples to crush them to go on the bottom of my rubber boot, just because I'm like, these deer are used to smelling apples. And I'm like, I want to do everything I can. So I even did that, which is kind of funny. And then I had never done that before, and I've killed deer out of this stand before, but I just, for some reason, I thought that was like really clever this year, and it probably didn't make a difference, but I did want to try it. So I put that apple down and stepped on it, and stepped on it each direction that I could to cover the full bottom of the boot. I got in the stand early, Jared. I got in about 4:45-ish, 4:30 maybe, and it doesn't get dark, or at least it's starting to get dark earlier now, but that was couple of weeks ago now, September 27th, 29th. I can't remember exactly. But so I got in early. And the big reason there is I'm like, I'm not going to push a mature deer out of there if I can help it, And I'm like, this deer's been showing up, but it hasn't been till closer to dark. And I thought I'll just get in there early. So I did. And I got in there early, and I had a couple small deer move through. This setup is kind of basically a big Norway spruce, and then it's like thicket. Like, dude, it's just, you can only see maybe 30 yards. And I was able to get in the stand. I had let me think about that. I think it was a northwest wind, which was actually hitting the back of my head. But it was good because where the deer come out, it was basically blowing from where I thought the deer would come from. Let's just put it that way. Okay. And so I was in a good position. I saw a couple does. I had one doe off in the thick. I think it was a doe. And I don't even know how, because there's no way she could have smelled me. I was upwind of her. She was, and she blew like crazy in this thicket, and just blew and blew and blew and blew. And I'm like, man, if I could have killed her, I would have. But I don't know what happened. If, who knows? Coyote, you know what I mean? It could have been anything. Maybe the wind swirled. I don't know. But I will say that there was a ton of acorns dropping. So right next to the tree I was in was why am I going blank on it? Not a pin oak, Greg would be mad at me. We just talked. No. Oh man. Anyhow, I apologize. It begins with a P. It's not a pin oak. It's a
It's an oak though.
Yeah. Or maybe is it a pin oak versus what am I thinking of?
I don't know what's going inside your brain, buddy.
Yeah, my wheels. So anyhow, I believe it's a pin oak, but it was dropping acorns like crazy. I probably got hit in the head with about 50 of them, and So I don't know. There were squirrels jumping around in there, shaking the damn tree. It's like, oh my goodness. But so anyhow, long story long, it was about almost 7 o'clock, 6:50, and I had a little tiny buck move through. He came in, worked a little scrape, was eating a bunch of those acorns. I mean, was right under the stand. That was at probably 6:30 or so. And then, I'm just sitting there trying to be quiet as per usual. And I looked to kind of back to my left. I heard a stick snap and I saw antler, and I was like, okay. So I stood up real quietly. And one of the keys to success, I think, on this particular stand is the way that the bow arm hangs out. I mean, it hangs out to where it's like almost out in front of you. So like instead of it being uptight against a tree where you have to turn, grab, and then you bring that bow around, looks like a sailboat coming around. That bow is hanging out in front of me. So like I literally pick it up off that hook and move it like 2-3 inches and drop it down. And now that bow's free. So the amount of movement is very minimal. And, I had my bow ready, got the release on, and I saw that deer and he came out. And Jared, I got to be honest, I kind of wasn't sure if I was going to shoot him or not. He came out, I had him at like 25 yards, and I could have snuck an arrow into him. And then he turned and went back into this thicket. And my biggest thing with shooting whitetails is like I try to really slow it down. If I could give anybody a tip on anything, because there are so many amazing deer hunters out there and certainly a hell of a lot better than I am. But it's like if there's one thing I try to tell people, it's just slow down. These deer, they don't know that you're
Al. Great advice, buddy. Preach it.
They don't know you're there, or they shouldn't, So I know that your heart's racing. I know that your adrenaline's pumping, and I know that it feels like this deer knows that I'm gonna, about to stick an arrow into him, but they don't, or they shouldn't at least, right? So it's like if you slow it down, that deer really doesn't have a reason to bolt out of there. And there are times, if the wind shifts or something, you get a sense like, okay, I got to speed up a little bit. But 90% of the time, slow down. And that deer, he actually kind of turned and went back into this thicket. And I was really trying to evaluate, it's first day of the season. Do I want to shoot this deer? And I got ready and said, well, if he gives me another opportunity here, I could see how wide he was when he walked away. And I'm like, I think I'm going to kill him. And he ends up coming like almost behind me. So he comes back out of this thicket, comes almost behind me to where there's just a traditional scrape there every year. And he stops and starts making a scrape. And when he picked his head up, and started looking up, I just remember being like, damn, he's wide, and I looked at his belly and he was at about 8 yards, give or take a yard. And I just decided at that point, I stopped looking at his rack and I looked at his body and I'm like, dude, he's got a big old body, And I'm like, that deer to me is mature with everything I have going on too. And I'm not making an excuse. I mean, I'm tickled pink to harvest a deer, but I'm just saying with everything I had going on, I'm like, I'd be crazy not to shoot this deer. And, I drew back, man, and I took my time aiming. And I mean, I buried that green pin because he was at 8 yards and just let that bow go off. And, I shoot an old Matthews helium. I think they're called TKO arrows. I'm like the least bow tech guy ever, not in the brand. I mean, like as far as like what kind of, stuff you put on your bow and arrows and this. And I use those big, either severs or I've been shooting those big mega meats. And as soon as I watched that arrow, I mean, it ripped through him and I watched blood pump out and he ran 60 yards and I saw his whitetail go up. I was a little bit hard to see in the thicket and he just piled up, man. And it was kind of funny because I watched this old history documentary, man, years ago of he's like known as the best sniper of all time, but he's in Vietnam. And I always want to say Carl Sagan, but Carl Sagan was the old physicist, but I think his name was Carl Hitchcock maybe. And I always think of this because I drew that bow back and I settled and anchored. And I mean, I anchored so solidly. It's like, once I get drawn and can settle, I'm like, you're dead. Like I don't want to get cocky, but I felt so confident in that. And at that last second out of my corner of my eye, I could see that buck looked up at me right before that arrow. And I remember that Carl Hitchcock, he was going after this Vietnam sniper, and it was actually a woman, and he was snuck up on his belly in this big area where he was overlooking them, all these like this Vietnamese camp, and he's like, she squatted down, mistake. And like that always like made me think of like that. That's what it made me think of when I shot that buck. Like he looked up and I was like, too late, buddy. And I was so blessed to make just a really good shot. And it was cool. I mean, he just buried into him and actually got a total pass through, and he was dead within seconds.
Wow, man, that's awesome. Congrats on the great shot, first of all. That story, the comparison to the sniper, that's pretty cool. It's too late, mistake,
Yep.
You already had him. And what you told me the other day when we talked about it, which I want to make sure we hit on, is when you drew back, you were able to like hold that bow in one spot on the deer and like pretty much keep the bow, or the whole time keep the bow on the deer during the draw. It's not that big swinging bow up in the air, pull down, aim at the moon, and bring it in. I mean, it's like fluid, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And one I certainly don't want to take credit for. I think there's a lot of guys who've probably been doing it for a hell of a lot longer than I have, but it's something that's worked for me. I went through all phases of bow hunting, as far as wanting the fastest bow, wanting the heaviest arrow, this and that, and I've really just continued to go back. I have a Matthews Helium, which is I think it's 12 years old now. And the thing I love about it is I could certainly draw a lot heavier, but I have that bow set at about 62 pounds. And I can, like, when I drew on that buck, that sight picture was never off that deer's vitals, because I can draw that bow straight back to my anchor, and it's just a straight line from where that pin is to where my anchor point is. That is a straight line, and I drew back, anchored, and got that release. I always get it deep on that index finger, or is that your pointer finger? Whatever it is, on your shooting finger. And I got it deep on there. I never want to shoot on my fingertip. I always get that real deep, because you're a lot less likely, if you practice that way too, you got to practice it, but you're less likely to snap that trigger because you have to pull through that. So I get it real deep as I can on that finger and anchor. And it's just a straight line motion, my finger over the top, and then just pull, pop, and it just goes off. And when you do that, for me, I've been really fortunate to just, and again, a friend of mine, I've known him from the Ohio Outdoor Forum for many, many years. And he always says, enjoy the process of aiming. And that just sticks with me. I mean, it just sticks with me, because it's like we hunt and habitat manage and plant food plots and, run cameras and, tick off our family because we're obsessed with these glorified billy goats, and it's like we get this chance to draw on an animal, whether it's a doe, a 190, it doesn't matter. And you wait all season and hours at a time, and it's 90 degrees out in early season or whatever. It's like, enjoy that process, because for those 1, 2, maybe 3 seconds in most cases where you're at full draw, you might not have another opportunity like that for months, sometimes for years for some people, and that's like, that's like some of the things I go into that I think have helped me, is like, try to really slow down and tell yourself, enjoy this process. Don't rush, because you don't get that many opportunities to watch that pin settle behind, whitetail's rib and squeeze. Even if you shoot 6 deer a year, that's not that many moments, in the grand scheme of life. So it's like, try to slow down and enjoy that. And that's something that's very important to me. The other thing is, obviously, I've spent a lot of time on this, but studying the anatomy of a whitetail, Jared, is I think one of the biggest mistakes that guys make. And I'm nobody to preach to anybody. I don't want to sound that way, but I just think that it's something that's helped me, because I didn't know it as well, and over the years, I have been obsessed with studying the anatomy of a whitetail and how that impacts my aiming point, whether it's shooting foam or shooting deer. You almost get to the point where you can't visualize hitting a deer anywhere but through the heart or through the lungs, and that really comes into 2 things: understanding anatomy and visualization. I mean, I tell you what, when I sit in a tree stand, it's like a video in my mind, just visualizing an arrow hitting a deer where I want to, and that sounds a little hippity dippity, I'm sure, but like, I truly do believe in that. Like, I just keep focusing on what is that going to look like, and that blood pumping out and all of those things, not to sound, graphic or gory, but like the things that come with harvesting a whitetail. And if you can slow down and just keep picturing those things over and practice like you play, when you're shooting your targets too, like same thing. You just visualize that arrow. Where do you want to hit it? Visualize getting that finger in the right position and just keep hammering it. And that way, when you get an opportunity, hey, bad shots happen to everybody. I've missed plenty of deer, but that's something I think is really important, and it can help to lead to consistent success.
Well, you said a couple great things there, and this is very timely as I'm on my way north to really enjoy the aiming process. Man, I've never heard that. That's so true. And you hit every nail on the head with all the time away from home and everything else. Take 2 extra seconds. I like that. Slow it down. I like that. Man, visualize. I like that. So, I mean, I know you're my buddy, you're my business partner. I know how your brain works. You're very analytical. But we all get excited. So these things are good things. If I can grab a piece of that this weekend in the stand with me and just remember what you said there, I think it's going to be better off. So dude, congrats on the awesome deer. You're showing me the rack before we hit the record button here. Well done, brother. Well done. And I think, a little bit of season ahead of you yet. Shot him on the first day. You got another 3 months to go kill some does and have a good time. So,
yeah, and I think that's something I want to really reflect on too this year is, as I've been very blessed to shoot, a couple decent deer, it's like, I really want to be able to be at camp and be at the farm and we have good food plots and we have, good timber management and all of these things. Right. And it's like to really be able to say, all right, Brian, or all right, Zach, or whatever, right? Like go here, here's what the trail camera data says, go kill XYZ buck, or at least give it a hell of a, and really enjoy, the camaraderie of the camp and stuff. Deer hunting, I think sometimes can get really individually focused, and guys, you get too focused on the rack or this or that. And like, that's cool. I mean, we all do it for ourselves but also like to do it in the camp. And like, like you said, if I shoot a doe the same night somebody shoots a buck or somebody has a good encounter and then somebody else shoots a doe, and like just to be together. And we only got so many deer seasons. And like, I think it was T-Bone Turner. He was interviewing or on a podcast. I saw a clip with him and Michael Waddell, and he goes, look at all these racks, Michael. And they had all these huge bucks on his wall. He goes, when we die, this is just a pain in the ass for somebody, all this stuff, and it really made me think. He's like, you're right. Like all the mounts, and it's awesome. Like I'm not taking away from that, but like you also have to enjoy the time with your family and your friends and stuff. And that's like what I'm really looking forward to. Like I'm so blessed to have harvested that nice buck. And now it's like, okay, now I can, enjoy some other people's success too, and, I'm not that worried about like, oh, I got to make sure every deer makes it to next year, so I have a bigger deer to kill. You know what I mean? Like big deer come and go, and they tend to keep coming around. So just enjoy the time with your family and friends. That's kind of my takeaway.
Awesome, Al. Well, good luck the rest of the season. Well done. Keep shooting straight. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for hopping on today, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, man. You take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Habitat Podcast. We really do appreciate you guys coming back every week to get this awesome Habitat content. And we would appreciate it if you went to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to this podcast, and leave us a 5-star review. That helps us continue to grow and trend in the right direction, attract new listeners, and help us provide better content in the future. Guys, we have a website full of resources. We have a blog on the website. We have YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all linked up at habitatpodcast.com. Our land plan services, merchandise, decals, hats, t-shirts, and I give away a free 5-inch decal to anyone who leaves us a review on Apple iTunes. Really appreciate it. I want to thank our partners, Downburst Cedars, Vitalize Seed Company, Morse Nursery, Packer Max Cultipackers, Stealth Outdoors, First Light Latitude Outdoors, United Country Midwest Lifestyle Properties. Thanks again, guys. We'll be back next week with another great episode of the Habitat Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.